Courage, vision, resilience. It's more than just a journey. It's a universe of endless possibility, where a single idea can change a man's life, creating new worlds from the ground up. I am Ricky. I'm your guide through the epic stories of Web3 pioneers. Join me and enjoy the podcast. The Tales of Web3.
Yo, yo, yo! What is up, everyone? This is Ricky. We are recording the first episode of the Tales of Web3 Season 2 with my buddy Zon,
Let's go.
the co-founder of Initia today. Hello. How are you doing, man?
Not too bad, sir. Not too bad. How about yourself? Excited to be here for Season 2?
Very, very excited. So for Tales of Web3 is all about... Yeah, you go.
This should really be called Tales of Ricky. You've got too many stories.
Thank you.
You're a BD legend.
It's all about... Hear the good stories about you. Today we're gonna dive deep about all interesting stories. Obviously, I know a lot about you now because we have the interesting lunch. But I think the audience and the world deserves such an epic story from you too. So yeah, my brother, please share a little bit about your story, how you got into Web3, how your interesting experience with Luna goes, and then how you ended up here building Initia, one of the most promising ecosystems out there.
Sure, yeah. So my journey into crypto was essentially, I had always, known of what BTC and ETH were. Bought my first coins on Robinhood back in 2017, something like that, like right around the time that they launched ETH. I've never actually held Bitcoin in my life. I've only held Ethereum and other tokens. That just shows that I'm like the Zoomer group of crypto, like the second wave.
Which is nice.
But my brother, he got into buying Bitcoin a long time ago, and he worked at a Bitcoin startup before he started his Web2 company. And when DeFi summer was rolling around, he basically bought me a ledger and was like, "Hey, try out this DeFi thing," right? Like he's heard good things about it. And so I took that Christmas gift and I basically just started diving in. And it was right around the time when things were getting interesting. So farming yams and pickles on ETH, the rise of all the Olympus DAO forks, and then the fall of all the Olympus DAO forks. But
I remember
it was like
that.
The golden era, you would just enter a Discord and like buy the Discord a boost, and then you'd get a whitelist, and somehow that would turn into like tens of thousands of dollars. It was actually insane that was the thing that we were doing. But it was a lot of fun. There were so many different on-chain games, and I was just playing with them. And one of the things I started looking into was Mirror. So Mirror was this application on Terra. It was around the time of like GME and all the stocks, and I was big on Wall Street bets. And I was like, oh, this is a great way for me to farm some stocks, keep my exposure to a minimum. Obviously, UST turned out to be not stable, but for a long time, Mirror was like one of the greatest farms because what you're holding was stocks essentially, and you're farming these Mirror tokens. And so after playing around with that, I started looking into what Terra was, what Cosmos was, found this idea of the app chain thesis, the belief that you could vertically integrate what you're building into the chain, started playing with other Cosmos chains, and then really just fell in love with that idea. Even though I spent most of my time in my DeFi playing still on Ethereum. And so I was finishing up my master's degree. I was in my mom's basement because I was scared of dying from COVID and playing a lot of Smash and just playing with this DeFi stuff. And I was like, okay, for my last internship before I start my full Web2 job as a software engineer, maybe I should try building in this space. And so I DM'd Do Kwon on Twitter and I
Look at
said,
that.
give me a job, please. Like, I'm a very capable engineer and I can learn. And he got on a call with me and he was basically like, all right, build this stuff on chain, build a smart contract, deploy it, and then we can talk. And I was like, I have no idea what a smart contract is. I don't know how to use Rust. Like, what is all this? And basically, I just spent a week just grinding and learning, and did what was required. Built my first smart contract in Cosmosm, and yeah, I got the job. And then I was a smart contract dev at Terra for a while. Then I left to build my own project within the Cosmos with my current co-founder, Stan. Unfortunately, it was supposed to be deployed on Terra. And so right after we finished raising money, Terra blew up,
And
never launched the product,
that's a sad
returned
story.
the money, spent like 3-4 months figuring out what to do next, playing a lot of Elden Ring, and then basically started Initia once we found some holes in the market, and found a killer team to work with.
Thanks for sharing that story. One thing that I find really inspiring is like a lot of the good connections, a lot of the like new journeys actually start with a code DM in crypto, like a code DM on Twitter. Like these folks, like you don't know how like open minded or how embracive they are. They just reply for the messages and boom, like there's an opportunity right there. But I think you're definitely that type who likes to take risks, likes like to take life on a new journey. Uh, yes, so thanks for sharing that. Something that I'm really, really curious, and I bet like a lot of the folks who are listening to the podcast is interested as well, is how do you pick your co-founder? What are like, I know like you and your co-founder, you guys have a like working together back in the Luna time, right? But like basically, how do you pick them? You know, because I feel like picking up a co-founder is literally like picking up like a partner, right? You will like spend like a huge amount of time with them, like discussing the future of your company, and like how do your mindset works?
Yep. So, yeah, a co-founder is definitely a hard choice because you want them to have complementary assets and skills to yourself, but they also need to be just a very smart person, and ideally one that is, is just going to grind for as long as you are, and someone that you can just ultimately trust, right? Like, I don't need to be checking in on Stan and like the things he's doing because I can just trust that he is working nonstop for our mutual bags, right? Like that I think is the most important thing, and I think what really gave me the confidence to continue working with Stan was after we started the first project together and it failed, right? Or like, I guess it didn't really fail. We just never launched it. He helped make these really ethical choices, which were like, we're going to return this money. And then he didn't just
That's nice.
like fuck off, right? He was like, let's figure out what to do next. Like we both spent some time looking at other jobs, but after that experience of going through such highs together and then such lows, him being there to stick by me, and I know that he's probably the smartest guy I've ever met. It made a natural sense to continue working with him. Like he has worked at, like 4 of the biggest quant trading shops in New York. He speaks 7 languages.
Wait, what?
He's
I don't know.
Yeah, he's
Damn, that's crazy.
He was a linguistics major originally in school at Princeton, and then halfway through he became a math major, and then he literally just did all the math classes and then got hired while he was in college to work at a quant shop.
Awesome. Sick. Stan, your co-founder, the man.
Yeah, he's the right curve. I'm the left curve.
I see. I can definitely see the left curve in you.
I'll take it as a compliment.
But that's cool. 100%. What about the teams? Like, I feel like you guys have like 30 people-ish team, right? Like building the team from scratch must be hard. I feel like especially for the first few hires, Like, what are the characters that you're looking into these people, and what are the choices that you've made that makes you like never regret? Because I feel like your team is killing it out there, no matter on the product side, no matter on Twitter. Like,
Yeah.
why you're able to find these genius who are dedicated into something that they all believe is going to happen in the
So
future?
we have about 40 people on the team now. About 33 are engineers. And I would say for the first entire year that we built Initia, we only hired engineers. So the only people on like the business side of things were like me and Stan. And I'm also used to be an engineer. So it was the whole first year we were basically building in stealth. So it was very engineering focused. And the way that we did our first hires was through friends of friends or people that we had worked with in the past that had specific domain knowledge. So the thing that's interesting is in Cosmos, there's probably only 5 to 10 engineers that actually know how to build Cosmos SDK. So not like the smart contract side, but like the chain side. Probably only 5 to
There's
10
only
like
5 to 10.
engineers, like capable ones that can be
That's
like,
crazy.
I understand this framework and I'm gonna like change the way things work. A bunch of them worked at Informal, right? A bunch work at like Skip now, probably some
Yeah.
at like Osmosis, and then I'd say Terra also had like a few of the most cracked devs. And so some of the first like couple hires were people that we had worked with before. And then we basically said we want to build this team up in person because in-person work is just fundamentally better, especially for an engineering org. And some of the most interesting ideas that you have are just like thought of on the spot, and you turn around and you talk to someone and you're like,
Yeah, I
oh, that
agree with
makes
that.
sense.
100%.
And so we basically gave the onus to like our engineering leads and our engineering team and said like, do you have people that you want to work with? Like, are there people that you trust that you've worked with in the past? You guys have way more experience building engineering teams than us, right? And basically just let them start doing additional hires. And we have been a part of a few orgs before. Me in traditional Web2 tech and Stan at Quants, and then also together in Web3. And so we knew how to structure the organization. Like, what should the design team look like? What should the front end team look like? The core team, and how should they work together? We don't have any, we never use any third party services. So everything at Initia is built internally. So that means all of design, front end,
I saw the
middle,
tweet.
back
I saw
end,
the tweet.
infrastructure.
The meme.
Yeah.
The meme maker. The meme makers.
Yeah.
Wait, do you guys
Also
really
a
have a
meme
meme
maker.
maker in the house? Are you guys
We
really? Or is
do.
this just like a joke?
Well, don't you know his name is Titty Respecter on Twitter?
Oh my god. Oh guys, you
yes.
have to give it a follow. Dude, I really thought it was some kind of joke, but okay.
Nope. Full-time
Look
meme
at that.
machine.
This is the way to build a crypto company, right? Like, guys, learn. This is gold. What is the no one characteristic you're looking for when making a new hire, or what is the one mutual common character you feel like all the Initia team has shared? Very important one.
It's probably just like grit. Like the whole first year we were building, right, was in stealth, which meant that we had no one knew Initia. There was no hype. Like, we had a tiny bit of money because when we were raising, we always believed that like what we would be building in the future would be more valuable. So we were very conservative with the amount of tokens we sold, right? And so when we were doing our first fundraise, most pre-seeds are around like 10% to the supply. We only sold 5, and it was at a relatively cheap, right? So we didn't get too much money. The same thing happened with our seed round. Like, we only sold another 5%. And then the same with our Series A. So we've always been very conservative. And that means that the team has to definitely grind more because we think what we're building is like real. There's a long-term purpose here and we're going to win. And so in the long term, stuff is more valuable. So why would we sell it up front? And so that entire first year.
Long term, baby. Long term.
Yeah, long term. The entire first year was just like in silence, right? We didn't even have a Twitter. We were just all working together in person, just literally building. And so having the determination and the belief of what Initia is building and the grit to come in every day and work towards that without any recognition was like a huge point of like the reasons that we hired these team members. Like they're bought in, right? They know that we're going to win. And I'm very thankful for that. Like now it's a very different story. Now Initia has hype, like people know about us. Now when it comes to hiring, like a lot of people come to us. But you still have to find those people with the fire.
100%. I agree with that. I used to see a lot of people sharing that, and I completely agree with that as well. Is that like 99% of the time you're actually like at the backstage, you're doing like these hard works that are actually valuable, but nobody sees it, right? That 1% of the time you're like shining on stage where everybody sees it, sees the hype, sees the value, but they didn't see the rest of like most of the time where the actual work is happening. But I would say you guys right now are definitely on the front stage. You guys are getting the hype, getting the light.
Wallahi.
I mean, I'm happy for you, right? Like but you need the hard work to be there, to get there, right? So I'm happy for you, brother.
Yeah, it's a lot of ups and downs, like you're saying. You work for months to get that one announcement out, but hopefully your users who are using the products every day understand the work that went into them.
Awesome. I'm also really curious about what's your thought about like building an ecosystem, right? L1, L2, any kind of ecosystem, and like how do you think about like how do you define a sustainable ecosystems looks like, right? Because obviously a lot of people having contradictory thoughts about should we give grants to poach other teams and blah blah blah. A lot of these controversial
Poaching?
topics.
Damn,
I mean,
you go crazy like that?
No, not poaching. I would say like probably that's the wrong word, but like you have a grant, right? There's
No, it's the right word.
It's the right
word. It's the right word. So,
but like I'm gonna please share.
I think basically there's a few things for ecosystem building or just like getting builders to use your stack. The first is looking at hindsight, right? Using the experiences of other ecosystems and seeing how they've developed. Like if you've been around in crypto long enough, you've been able to see some. And like the successful ones are very, very clear, right? Like they had a handful of really strong projects and those basically lead the charge and then stuff gets built around it and then more people flock, right? Like a lot of crypto is about attention and attention drives liquidity. And liquidity drives successful applications a lot of the times. And so on Arbitrum, for example, you basically had GMX, got really big. Every single project was a GLP wrapper of some sort. You have stuff like Optimism, which had synthetics and Velodrome. Those kind of just got minted as winners, and then you had stuff pop up. Then you look at stuff even like Terra, which had like Anchor and Mirror. Those were big hits, and then stuff got built around them. Like that was probably all of Cosmos at one point. And so if you look at other ecosystems that have focused on quantity over quality, you see a fizzle, right? And that's because when you have too many teams, you can't focus on like one great product. And it often results in having a lot of UniV2 forks or like forked projects that aren't trying to deliver something unique, right? And we have like 30 EVM layer 2s with the same lending market and the same DEX. Like no one cares about any of those except for doing some airdrop farming. So you need to have compelling reasons for people to actually come over. The second is you can cannibalize your ecosystem very easily if you bring over household names. So I think one of the most important things for early users is like opportunities for wealth creation. And that means ideally some projects will launch and they'll perform well and people that bought into the ecosystem will make some money, right? Like NFA.
That's the best way to bring in new users.
Of course, always, right? And so if you bring over something like Pancake or Sushi, not to hold anything against them, great products. But what you might do is you might cannibalize the native dexes or the native applications on your chain. TVL will be driven to these applications, and then they're probably not going to make money for their users because they already have tokens that have been out for a long time. But if you give your TVL attention, time, effort to these native projects, they might win, right? And if they win, you mint like a loyal winner that is going to champion part of your ecosystem. And so when it comes to this type of ecosystem building, I think you should be focusing a lot on quality over quantity. And that's also the reason we don't give grants, right? Like, I think the often the type of builders that take grants, right, are sometimes it's just because they need money, but often they're a little bit more mercenary in the sense that they'll probably take a grant and go somewhere else later on, right?
That's
So
that's the idea I wanted to share. Yes, so easily to be. There's no barrier, right, stopping them from like not building on your ecosystem. The other team offers them more grant, they just go to build there, right?
Exactly. And if it's something that's basic or exists before, like it's easy to take a grant and then fork your project and change the colors of the front end. But if you're trying to build something unique that has a chance of attracting, real users from different pockets, bringing over some liquidity, like that's going to take time. And it's going to take dedication to make that succeed. And so if you find those teams, like give them all the love and attention they need and just focus on helping them win.
I think our team actually at Cyber, we're building out too, right? We come up with similar thesis about, because we were talking about grant, whether they were effective enough or not. And then we also come up with the idea, if there's like native apps, native builders who, just give them all the love, all the support you can be, right? It's going to be really hard, right? Because right now, like we are helping them to fine tuning their narrative, the pitch decks and stuff, connecting them with some investors. These are all the hard works that need to be done. But if there are really some apps that can come out, right, the winners, the champions you were saying, I think it's really going to make the ecosystem like healthier, right? Comparing with just use money to buy the big protocols to deploy.
All you need is like two successful applications, right? That
even just one. I think a lot of the ecosystem don't even have one, right? So you need to, which is funny, obviously. Thanks for sharing that. I really appreciate it. Where do you think crypto Web3, all of us, is going or heading to next in the next 5 years?
Yep. So I think there's a few things. One, I think right now is obviously like the meme coin craze. And I think that's mostly driven from the fact that a lot of the upside of these infra institutional rounds is taken in the private markets. And so meme coins are a great way for people to have those opportunities to make those multiple X's really quickly. It's also just like hyper financialization is crypto and gambling, etc. But I think that meme coins will die out soon. I think the top already happened, and we're in that like spiral loop where you have a lower top every single time.
I agreed.
And so I think we're going to have a few shifts. One is there's going to be more liquid investing, like allocating funds to not new deals, but to like existing projects and teams that are doing things right. Because there's so many, right? There's like so many projects that are successful, but I think undervalued. The incentives in crypto are just not very aligned in the sense that like new pre-market stuff always is more hyped than existing things. And I don't know how that's going to change, but I hope it does. And then I think there will be a switch to application investing, but that's also going to be hard. This is just like a dream, it's like I wish that was the focus.
I feel like we are getting there, but then I'm not seeing any apps being invested, because people are saying, okay, exactly. We wanted to look at consumer apps, and then you look at all these fundraising news. There's no one app that are able to get their fundraise. I don't even know why, but I totally get what you're saying.
Infra keeps out competing or keeps winning on the venture side, like people will invest in infra. And so I think there will be just like too much of this infra and it'll get nuked. Like there's definitely going to be a consolidation phase as all these tokens unlock. Like we can't absorb all of that. But the last thing that I think that will happen is like more community fundraising. So like platforms like Echo are kind of bringing back things like ICOs, but in a legally compliant way, right? And I think that
you guys did a community round, right?
Yeah, we did
You
a
guys did a
round on
community. It's
Echo.
pretty successful. Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah, it was great. It sold out in less than 2 hours. It was about 2.5 million for 1% of the token supply and around 5K max checks. So there was about 800 something people that invested.
It's
And that was
amazing.
awesome, right? It was like now anyone can get in and invest into Initia that is a qualified investor that you otherwise wouldn't have been able to do unless you are an institution or an elite VC. And I think that's the way like apps are going to be able to raise more so in the future, because maybe if a VC doesn't see the reasons why this would be successful, like there's so many individuals that would be like, that's a cool mechanism. That's a fun application that I would play with. And so I'm just incredibly bullish on Echo. And obviously Kobe is like one of the most elite people in the space that has just been around for so
Echo.
long and consistently been like not scammed anyone, right? Like it's like
It's important.
over time, yeah, people tend out to be scammers or something else, right? Eventually, but Kobe's one of the ones that hasn't, and so yeah, super bullish on him and Echo.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And then the next question is the question that I always ask all my guests, right? Give me one story of Thorn on your journeys in the Web3 world, building Initia or not in personal life, but give me one story that is full of fun, risk taking, or even silly, right? Just I want people to remember you. This is something that you've been doing. That's something you've done in the past that made you who you are today.
Okay, I don't know if this is a good one to remember me by, but I will say it is a big risk that I took recently with my own personal money that was probably not the wisest if I could do it again. Which was essentially, okay, so there's this concept called RVing, right? Risk-free value. It's like when something is trading below the assets in the treasury, and this is typically something like Olympus DAO forks because the treasury belongs to the holders. But there's this protocol recently called Tangible, if you remember it from last cycle. They basically tokenized real estate. So they said, we're going to put these houses on chain. We're going to mint NFTs that represent each house. And then we're going to mint a stable coin against it. And then that stable coin depegged, right? So it was trading at like 50 cents, and technically there was 90 cents of real estate for every coin. So you could buy it at 50 cents, and technically it's worth 90 cents. But so basically I bought a lot of the stable coin and became somewhat of a on-chain landlord, one might say. Because now I technically own claims on a bunch of these houses. But then it turned out we're about 1 year later from that now. And the team has like not sold any of the land. They have basically took out a bunch of mortgages against them. There's like a bunch of lawsuits against them now. Very suspicious stuff happening. But I guess I'm still an on-chain landlord, which is still kind of epic, even if I lose all my money.
Where I can buy or rent your property, where people can do that.
Yeah, please let me move in.
This is fun. Thanks for sharing. I like the story a lot. Yes, but before we let you go, the last section of this episode will be you sharing some hot, controversial takes about the topics that we prepared. This is something special starting from season 2. I'm going to ask every single guest to share some hot takes they have. So the hot take from you, as I get quote, why do you think being a VM maxi is bad? That's the first question. And second question, why Rust rollup as a service providers are bad? So let's dive into it. The stage is yours.
Okay. It's not too much of a hot take, but I think basically there's a lot of projects or people that build their brands around certain VMs. And I think like a lot of crypto, like we focus way too much on the infrastructure in the sense that like where you build something or where your application is derives so much of like its value. Right? Like, this application's on Base or Arbitrum. Like, I'm going to use it because I'm a community member that loves Base. Or this is in Move or SVM or something like that, and I have a bunch of VM maxis. But I think like a lot of these things are just tools, right? Like each VM
Yeah.
has use cases, it has specialties. Like there are a lot of reasons to keep using Solidity. Primarily, I think using Solidity is because it's easily forkable and there's just so much dev knowledge. But that is a good use case. Like on Initia, we support EVM, MoveVM, and WASM VM. So whichever VM suits you in your application. Like Move is incredibly powerful for people that are building things like games. It's basically object-oriented programming. It's kind of
Yes.
Rust-like, and it's very secure. COSM WASM as well is very security focused, and it's a very easy to understand framework that's in pure Rust. And all of these have different trade-offs, right? Like you should just use whichever one suits your application. And I don't think you should build full brands about just one because you want to give these choices to developers, right? Like people still use different programming languages in Web2 right now, like JavaScript, Python, whatever, right? Like those choices should be available for developers in Web3 too.
You think in the future the devs, people building apps and protocols, they will be able to let your protocol and apps be live on multiple VMs? Yeah. Free up space and rejoin. Try refresh. I think he might have opened up too many tabs in his Google Chrome, so we'll wait him when he joins. But this is fun, guys.
Okay, I'm back. Did the other stuff record?
Did
it
you?
sync?
I think so. I just told the audience you probably have too much tab open up in your Google Chrome, similar to all the founder stuff. But I think you're back because it's not popping up the weird stuff. But like we were getting back. I was asking you like, if are people going to be able to build apps and protocols on multiple VMs and use the best of like every single VM?
So I think blended stacks, like where you can actually have all three on one chain, are possible. Like there's teams like Fluent working on it. I don't exactly know the exact use case for that yet, but I imagine there's something. But right now on Initia, like each layer 2 picks whichever VM they want to use, and then they build their application.
Nice.
And then they're all like interoperable. So you could send ERC20s into Move fungible assets, which are the Move coins, and Move coins into like CW20s, which are the Cosmosm coins. It's just all seamless and interoperable already.
Beautiful. Why Rust is bad? I feel like I'm just gonna ask for the audience, right? Because from what you described, right, from Initia, they probably think, okay, Initia is another Rust provider. Why you guys are not? And then why Rust is bad?
Yeah. Okay. So Initia is a layer 1 plus a interwoven layer 2 system, but it's a very opinionated design. So we don't give a lot of choices where the choices don't matter. We give choices where the choices do matter. So things like the VMs and what you're actually working in. The rest of the stack is kind of just enshrined and built in out of the box. So immediately when you launch, you have Layer 0, Celestia DA, IBC, native USDC, oracles, like fiat on-ramps, explorers, like all the front-end tooling.
Squad.
Yeah, basically just everything enshrined, boom, ready to go. You don't have to go BD or talk to anybody else. You don't have to pay any money. It's just there. And I think there's a lot of value to these opinionated systems because what RAS providers do is they're kind of like these vending machines. And vending machines are great for the vending machine operator because they give you all the freedom of choice, whatever you want, and they sell you all these things. But if you're trying to build like a new multi-chain world, there's obviously a lot of interactions that need to happen between all of these chains. And having all the
Great.
data, for example, on the same DA layer makes it very easy when you're dealing with fraud proof challenges or when you need to do proof aggregation or different things like that. Having everyone use the same interoperability standard means that you don't have fragmented liquidity and you don't have different types of token standards for the same coins. Like if you're trying to build this concise, robust, multi-chain Garden of Eden, you need to have this type of consistency. And RAS providers don't really do that because they give you all the choices imaginable. But often a lot of these choices are fungible. Like the reason to use one DA layer or another DA layer is probably because one of them's giving you a grant or one hasn't done their
yeah, or you're
airdrop
getting
yet.
the airdrop. You're getting the airdrop.
Exactly. So rather we just work with the best on these different stacks and we just integrate it well so that out of the box it works and it's seamless with all the other rollups that are built on Initia. And I think that's why these opinionated systems will work in the long term best.
You are the first person who introduced me the idea of like an opinionated like system where all these insurance like all star like an infra set already there, and I think it's really powerful. I really buy into that. So I'm gonna be a shiller of Initia starting from now, and I hope
man,
our
Ricky.
audience does that too. yeah. One last question, right? Before we go, what do you think are some of the reasons that Initia will absolutely dominate the market once you guys mainnet live? I think you already touched like a big part of it in the last question, but yeah, feel free to also share like what are some of the big updates that are coming and people should be excited for.
Yep. So there's a few things. One, I think the stack is like the most thought out stack of how multi-chain systems should work because there's the layer one that really acts as like the orchestration layer across all the layer twos, providing liquidity, security, rewards, and then the interwoven stack, which has all this stuff enshrined. So it will be the easiest place to build an app chain, full stop, in whatever VM you want. The second is infrastructure is table stakes now. So like everything I just said is important, but also there's good infrastructure everywhere. Like, yes, you can use the RAS providers and get good infrastructure, but the network effects of everyone building on the same stack, they compound. And after the infrastructure, you need to have good product UX and good economic designs because
100%.
that's what's going to keep like people around long term. And so having a very consistent product UX across all of the rollups on Initia allows us to build towards this chain abstraction thesis in a way that no one else can because everyone else has to build their solution, then go BD all the different parties and be like, hey, use our solution. And there's like 15 solutions that are going to be doing that. But everyone that's building on the interwoven stack is already bought in, right? They will just naturally use our solutions because it's the front end that they already use. And so when we get to a point where you have your unified balances across all the chains, when you go to spend on one place and it automatically takes from somewhere else, when you have gas fee abstraction, right? Like our distribution channel is already there. And the last piece is economic frameworks. So Initia VIP is probably the most
VIP.
robust.
We love that.
Fully on-chain economic incentive program that I've ever seen, which basically distributes rewards to layer twos and allows them to decide on the mechanisms of how those rewards get distributed to their users. But it's specifically built to, one, encourage use cases for the init token, and two, to keep users around using app chains over time. A lot of people focus on the supply side of tokenomics. How can we burn tokens? But I think you're never going to be able to burn enough tokens to make a difference. But rather, you focus on the demand side. How can we build new use cases for this native token to make it more valuable and to make it more ingrained as the canonical money of a multi-chain world? And I think tie that together with a phenomenal day one ecosystem, teams that are not just looking for grants, but are trying to build something unique. And I think Initia is very well suited to take on the challenge of winning.
Let's go. Let's go. I totally agree with the end user incentive part. 100% agree with that. And it's never about the supply. It's about the demand, creating new use cases, how the token can be actually used, how the end user can actually get that, and then to find some real actual use cases. And that is my last question. Thanks for being the guest for the Tales of Web3 Season 2, Episode 1. Guys, we welcome... Yeah.
One. Just episode one.
I thought you want to say something. One, Zone, the co-founder of Initia.
Thank you, Ricky. You're a legend.